Lindenhurst is a village of 27,000 on the south shore of Long Island, New York. These are the people who grew up there and their stories. Everyone I know is from Lindenhurst.
Oh, well, hopefully I won't bore you. I'll regale you with some tales.
You will not. So let's start with like family origins. How did the Sundquists land in Lindenhurst?
Oh, um, well, so my parents actually met and got married in Lindenhurst. They went to the high school. I don't remember. Like, I think my dad was older than my mom, and so they met somewhere in or around high school through friends. But my mom's family came there from Queens. They were living in, gosh, she's in Ridgewood, Queens. And they moved out to Lindenhurst in the same house where my grandparents still live now.
It's a very hip
Um,
area now.
yeah, I heard. Yeah. Oh, Ridgewood. I thought you meant Lindenhurst.
Well,
Like
sort of,
that
yeah.
street, that street in Lindenhurst. I was like, really? That street? Um,
That's the hip street.
yeah. I mean, I like to say it's because of them, but uh, and so my dad's family actually moved from Michigan, and they used to live in the school next to the middle school. There was, I think it became like a realty place, but like
Yes.
a block away from the library, there was a school, and then on the corner was a bank off Wellwood. Yeah, it was on Wellwood. They lived there, and the house was really cool. They had this attic room, and it was one of those rooms where it was fake brick, and the door was kind of like in Beetlejuice when they open the brick wall and
Right,
like
right.
the wall comes out. It
Draw a
was an
door.
actual, yeah, basically, yeah. It was a room like that, and that was, I don't know, it was creepy, I'm sure, as a kid, but that's one of the things I remember about the house. So yeah, that's how everybody
Okay.
got there. And then my grandparents still live there. My dad's not alive anymore, and my mom lives somewhere else on Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So there are some family still here in
Yep.
town.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
So childhood, we went to the same elementary school,
Yes,
Our
we
Lady of
did.
Perpetual Help.
Yes.
I was your sister Faith was in the
Mhm.
same grade as me, and you were a grade
Mhm.
younger.
Yep.
So I've known you since like second grade because
Hmm.
lunchtime they all threw us into the big
Oh
schoolyard
yeah,
together.
the big cement block.
Yeah, the parking lot, aka
Right.
schoolyard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hopscotch and handball. That's it.
yes, suicide. We called
Oh
it.
yeah. Hmm.
But well, first of all, how is it having a sibling that close in age, growing up?
Oh. Uh, um, Growing up, it was fun because we were pretty different. Growing up, it was fun because she had more intel on what school was like in the
Right.
grade above me, and so I feel like that was fun. And I don't know, she was the one who got a job first, and then like started doing like more, I don't know, I guess mature things, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's those are fun things. So it was fun. I think at times it was weird, especially as we got older and kind of had some friends. Like I think I started hanging out with you guys, and like I feel like people that were in her grade, like I started hanging out with like other people, and I think that was weird for her. She was like, "Oh wow, you're not weird, but
That
just
is
like
very much a
funny."
Lindenhurst thing, though. Like all the
Yeah,
siblings just hang out. It really
it's
doesn't
true.
matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, then she went away to New Paltz, and I felt like she abandoned me, even though obviously, your older sibling would go away to school and that would be
Sure.
it. But I was like,
And that's only like 2 hours away. It's not
right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you see a cat tail on the screen, there's a
ah,
cat coming around. Yeah.
very nice. So, like, what were some of your earliest memories of school and just like of Lindenhurst in general, just being out and about?
Yeah. Well, school, Catholic school can really stick with you in ways that you might not necessarily
Sure
care
does.
for.
Yeah.
But actually, one of my earliest memories was when, were you there in kindergarten?
Yeah,
Uh, did you have Sister Adrian?
I did.
I had Sister Adrian and was coloring some bunny ears for bunny, some Easter pageanty thing. And I was really trying to gave it like the pinkest ears. Like I had that colored pencil like sharpened down to the nub and was like, this is gonna be the ears that stand out. And she ripped them out of my hand, tossed them out the window, not even in the trash. She opened the window and threw it out the window and made me start over. And so I kind of feel like now being an artist, it's like me just being stubborn and being like, I'm gonna fucking do it, Sister Adrienne. Like,
Okay.
you know.
So instead of breaking you, that kind of drove you.
Yeah, I
Like
think so.
that's that early spite.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like, no, I had an idea and I need to see it through. And but you know, that's silly. But I mean, I have tons of really funny, like weird memories from school. Things that I'm like, I probably don't remember all of that correctly, or I hope I don't remember that all correctly. I remember the smell of hot dogs coming up from the basement.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
Like that's the weird smell, that like weird thing I think about. Or
That's where they cook the hot dog.
yeah, they had like a little kitchen downstairs, and once a month on Tuesdays, I think it was Tuesdays, they would have hot dog day and they would boil like, I don't know, like 30 packs of hot dogs.
Yeah. Was that Carl Amer Day? Was that something? I don't know why I think that's a thing. I didn't go to LPH.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I think they were from Carl Amer.
That makes, I mean, that makes sense because
Right.
yeah,
Right across the street.
But what was funny is we had a cafeteria, but we didn't eat lunch in there. We ate in the classroom.
You had a cafetorium, right? Or a gymatorium?
We had a gymatorium.
We had a gymatorium.
Right.
Which also I can remember the smell of that room and like that like slickness of the floor. And I also, you know, probably everybody remembers the smell of the when somebody pukes, the stuff, you know, the kitty litter they put down.
The powder, yeah.
That's really gross, but
vomit comet, I believe.
Yeah, pretty much. I was telling my husband this the other day because we lived kind of close to the school, but not really close to the school. And for the first couple of years we took the bus, and then I remember my first day of kindergarten, I like fell because it was raining out, and some like big kid picked me up and like, you know, dusted me off. And I remember that was really sweet. But anyway, we took the bus and then we couldn't take the bus. And so my grandma would pick us up a lot. So we used to get like Italian ices and walk home. And although I do remember when I was in band, sorry, this is just a stream of conscious, like random things I remember. I remember I played the glockenspiel. I was one of the only, I think I was the only for at least a little while. But the case was a pillowcase. And I had to drag it from my grandparents' house down like, you know, through down Hoffman, off Wellwood, and it would just like clang and I'd come to school, I had like cuts all over my legs because we had to wear those stupid uniforms. It was like, oh God, that was a mess.
Did you also play the flute?
No, Faith played the flute. My sister played the flute.
So you were strictly glockenspiel.
Yeah, and since I was the only one, and I never practiced. They paired me with the flute people for like less, like for practice, and I guess he gave me flute sheet music.
Right. That's why maybe I associated you with flute.
Yeah,
because that's a percussion. You should have been back there with me,
right?
In the percussion section,
right? I probably would have learned something.
Right.
But I just would, and then since I was the only one, there was no one that I had to like sync up with. So I just like all those concerts just like hit wherever.
Yeah.
It was like, who cares? Yeah. I do remember, I don't know if it was one time or multiple times, you were playing drums like after band practice was over.
Yep.
You got like the floor, and I was like, I know I have to go back to class, but this is awesome. And yeah,
I'm letting the truth out for everyone to know. All of 8th grade, I cut library class.
That's right.
To play drums down in the basement.
And it's not like something you could be sneaky about because you were playing drums.
No, it just sounded throughout the entire school.
Yeah.
But just everyone thought was, right.
It was practice.
That it was commissioned by Mr. Effman.
But it sounded good.
Near where you made the hot dogs.
That was same room or in the same area.
Yep.
The kids didn't make the hot dogs.
Yeah, so there was hot dog day once a month and pizza day as well.
Oh yeah, I got to be the pizza person for a while and collect everybody's money. I don't know why anyone trusted me with that. It was a stressful job.
Yeah. And was your mother, was she like a lunch monitor as well?
I don't know. She might have been. I feel like she might, like, there was a year because my mom worked like long days. And so I feel like she worked weekends because that's when we went to my dad's house. And then I know she worked during the week. And then she got a second job. So then she worked a lot more. I don't know if she had the stamina to. She might have,
Oh,
like, when
okay.
we were really little and then was like, I can't handle this.
Yeah. My mom did it for a while. They would have, I guess, to not have to pay teachers extra, they would have mothers come in and chaperone
Yeah.
us during lunch.
We had one guy who would just come in and read the paper. He would like sit down and read the paper, and like all hell would be breaking loose around him, with like lunch meat and flying and textbooks because you're in your classroom, and he
Yep.
just, ate his, read his paper. Yeah, it was good times, I guess.
Yeah.
Good
And
stories.
and so throughout this time, you're getting into art and
Yeah,
drawing, painting.
yeah. I think so. I feel like um that was just something I really liked doing. My aunt was she had just finished school in New York, and she worked for this pattern making company, and she lived with my grandparents too. And so she would always be on the kitchen table, like drawing and doing her work, and it was always really cool. So I guess I just, was like, oh, this is just what we do to pass the time. We draw, or we, paint, to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. I feel like everybody in my family is has like a hobby like that, though. Like, this is a creative kind of keeping you busy, but also, I don't know, probably relaxing and therapeutic in its own way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, did you apply to other high schools, or was Holy Trinity the only one you had applied to?
I applied to, I feel like all, like, St. John's I applied to, and St. Anthony's and Holy Trinity. And honestly, I don't even know why I picked Holy Trinity. I don't know if it was like tuition was cheaper or what, because it was the furthest away.
Did
Um,
your sister go to that one as well?
no, she went to St. Joseph's in Brentwood.
All
Yep.
girls school. Yeah.
Yep. She went to an all girls school in Brentwood. And it was cool. It was like kind of like, I don't know, that campus was really neat. Her school, it was like a, I don't know, borderline Harry Potter situation.
Mm.
It was cool. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
borderline?
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
It was just like a magical place, and the craft had just come out, so it was just like all these girls like practicing their witchcraft in this.
Right.
Yeah, my
Wiccan.
yeah, my school was not as I mean, it was so much bigger than, I was so overwhelmed the first couple of years. I probably would still be overwhelmed because, well, there was what, 25 kids in our class at most.
Yeah.
And I think there were like, oh, I don't know, like 400 or something in high school. And my locker was on the fourth floor because my
Wow.
last name. And so it was like carrying
Mm.
like buckets of books. And then, like, I don't know, that was a lot.
Yeah, I remember the first day of high school just being exhausted. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I could do this.
Yeah, totally. I'm like,
School is huge.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, do I have to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, did you have Spider Nick for physics class?
I didn't. I didn't take physics. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. No, but
Yeah, he was a teacher there
yeah,
during your time.
that's right. Scully, uh, what's his last name? Kaplan? No, it must
Sullivan
be
Kaplan.
Sullivan Kaplan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait, no, that has to be Sullivan. So Scully's locker was next to mine in the beginning, because he
That
was a
makes
senior when
sense.
I was a
Yeah.
freshman. And I remember he was so nice, like so nice, was like, here, can you need help with your book? Or, like, how's your day going in the beginning? But I was warned so heavily that the seniors were going to be like torture you and be jerks to you, that
Yeah.
I just the whole time thought he was being sarcastic. And I was like, why are you being nice to me? It was
It's
really
the
silly.
Jewish boy in the Catholic school.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, and years later I was like, you actually were being nice. You're a really nice person. Like,
Genuinely nice. Yeah.
yeah, you weren't just messing around. Yeah, it was silly. Yeah.
So high school, mid 90s, a lot going on Long Island.
Oh yeah.
Um, you start hanging with the group that I'm hanging with in
Mhm.
Lindenhurst. You and Jackie Poor and Paula McAllister and Jill and all those. And when you guys started coming around, I was like, oh, I've known them forever. They're
Right.
all PH people.
Yeah.
Um, and I always want, because I went to Lindenhurst High School. I always wonder like what it would have been like if I went to one of the Catholic high schools. Would it be
Yeah.
different? Would I be hanging out with the same people, getting into the same things?
Right.
So how did you all discover
You guys?
like music? Yeah, us guys. But just like, the music scene in general and like, all
Yeah.
the all that was going on at that time.
Us
Um,
stupid boys.
all you boys making all the music. I think that, well, first year of school, like I was just like totally fish out of water and didn't know anybody and like started to make friends like at Holy Trinity, like that were into music, but it was more like Smashing Pumpkins and like stuff like that. Um and then I don't know if it was like just because summertime or do we just, I don't know, we friends from old PH, I feel like we just kind of I mean, I was always friends with Paula, like we were always, Paula and Jackie, and I feel like we kept that friendship going on. And I don't remember how, but it was James. Like James pulled us all back together. And I can't remember like what the circumstance was that like if it was like James talking to somebody on MySpace, like one of like Jackie Poor or something, but or she was working at Carvel at the time, so maybe
That's
like
what I was gonna say. Jackie worked at Carvel with Joe Esposito and like
yep,
John Kent
yep,
and James Matthias and whoever else.
yeah,
All
yeah.
of those people being in James's grade. So I don't know
Hmm.
if that somehow links to that.
I feel like that must, because I remember I think she went to maybe the junior prom with James or something.
She dated Brian Sullivan, who worked there.
That's right. That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, I mean, really, it was just like we were hanging out, or he was, I don't know. James just had such a good way about being like, I don't care. Like, I'm sure he respected what anyone else was doing, but he's like, this is a cool thing you should know about. And it was like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, not like a,
He was not shy about that kind of thing.
No.
Like,
right. Yeah. Just
I
sort of
like
like,
this,
this
you
is
should
this
like
awesome
this.
thing.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or not even that, like, you'd be stupid not to like it. And
Uh-huh.
you're like,
yes.
okay, I'm in.
Of course, this is
Yeah.
what I like.
Right. Yeah. And so I feel like, yeah, he just kind of, and then I think maybe all of us came to one of your waiting process rehearsals in your basement. And that was fun.
That's where we are right now.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's
Mind fuck.
some serious, some serious vibes in there, I bet.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then we started going to shows, and I mean, there were people, like a lot of people that I met at Holy Trinity that were making music and doing all that kind of stuff, but it was more like, I don't know, it was different. And I think just like because we had such a history with all you guys, and like, and it
Yeah.
just was just, I don't know, it was kindred in a way. So
Yeah.
not to get nostalgic, but it was. And so it was, and James just, heckled us into doing all of it.
And at that time, you had worked at Black Forest Bakery, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
What was that like? Is that like would you consider that like a rite of passage that growing up in Lindenhurst?
Probably. I mean, I'm not sure how many I don't think that they're still there, but I think working at one of
They
those
are not.
bakeries. Oh, they're not. I feel like working at one of those bakeries for sure would be a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Or if Friendlies was still there, I feel like Friendlies would be another. But yeah, that was my first job. And I mean, I babysat, but that was my first job. I had to be there so early, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and like slinging donuts, and like, people would come in for coffee. It was just like a weird, and especially around holidays, like I feel like I always had like whatever they were going to throw out. My family would just like come to expect like, oh, we're going to bring home this,
Yeah.
this, and it would just be what we had left. But I don't know, it was a weird job. But my sister worked there too, so I feel like it was like, I don't know, it was a safe place sort of. I ate a lot of baked goods, like my life's worth of baked goods. Thankfully they were mostly all good.
So, yeah, moving into high school, we're all hanging out, music's happening. You're still doing art,
Mhm.
um, getting a little more serious about it.
Yeah, I think so. I started to take more art classes. I started to join a couple like after school art clubs at Holy Trinity. I never really like felt like super connected to any of it, but it was like, I don't know, it just felt like a familiar thing that I enjoyed doing. Um, and then, yeah, when we were starting to think about schools to go to, my aunt, who I was talking about earlier, she went to FIT in New York. And so, um, I just was like, oh, well, that's just where, like, I think as soon as I knew what that place was, or, I was like, oh, I'm going to go there. And so I did. I lived in the city for a year and then commuted for the second 2 years I was there before I transferred schools. But um, that was fun going there, like living there. And I feel like it was during a time when there were those, gosh, what were they called? Oh, it wasn't Jade Tree, but it was CMJ music festivals. I don't know if they still
Yes.
have those, but it was like tickets were like $10 and you could go
Yeah.
see everybody. I
Right,
feel like
right.
I saw Jets to Brazil like 10 times that year.
We saw them on my 17th birthday
Really?
at the Knitting Factory. Me, you,
Yes.
James, and Derek.
Yes. Yeah. I actually have a picture of you. There was a car outside of, I don't know why I thought of this. There was a car outside of my dorm and it said something on it. And I have a picture of you pointing at it. I should find it
Wow.
for you. I'll send you a picture of it. Yeah.
So, with our last guest, Phil Tahale, he told a story about running into you
Oh.
at Penn Station on 9/11
Oh.
when you guys were all trying to get out of the city. What's your recollection of that day?
Oof. That day, it's weird. I was talking to somebody else about that day today. I was going into the city for school. I was late for class, so I missed the train. So I was like 8. It was after 8 that I was getting there. And it must have just happened like when I was underground or, like whatever time it was, like it had just happened. And, I was in Midtown, so I was super far away. But by the time I got to the lobby of school, everything was on the TV, and they actually made us stay at this. Well, they tried to make everybody stay at the school until they figured out what was going on a little bit. But you're college kids, and it's not where people. I don't know. Nobody did, and a friend of mine, Kristen, and I left and just kind of tried to walk back to Penn Station to see if we could get a train back, and then we sat there for 6 or 7 hours, and just waited until they opened everything back up. But it was so sad and horrible seeing everybody and everybody was just walking up from south up like to Midtown to go to the train station to get out of there, and people were just covered in soot. And it was just, that day can kind of tip me to be like, I think I'm done. I think I need to, like, New York's intense. And so nobody could get a hold, like no one's cell phones were working or anything. And actually James was the one who picked me up from the train station. I don't remember how. He was like the first person whose text came through that was like, are you okay? And he picked me up from the train station. I remember that night we went to and then obviously seeing Phil Tahale and just being like, what the fuck's going on? But at night I remember we went to Venetian Shores and saw all the boats that had come in to kind of, I guess, like all the,
Yeah.
I don't know, the Navy, whoever it was just all there. And then we didn't have school for a week. I think I didn't go back for 2 weeks. And then I transferred, not that next semester, but the next one, to Philly.
UArts in Philly?
No, I went to this school called Moore.
Oh, more. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. It's an all-girls art. Well, it's not anymore, but it was an all-girls school, which was interesting.
Okay.
And, yeah, it was good.
So during that time, what part of Philly were you living in?
For the first couple years, I lived right in the art museum area, like Spring Garden. And then actually I lived there for all of school. I lived there for a long time. And then I moved to West Philly. That was my favorite place to live in Philly.
If I had not moved back, I would have moved to West Philly. That's my favorite part of Philly for sure.
It's just, yeah, like the houses are cool, like walking around, so nice, and the parks, it's just green and old, and there's so much good food everywhere. Yeah, West Philly is great. And then the very last place I lived was in North Philly, and it was real sketchy.
Mm.
It was real sketchy.
It's interesting how different every neighborhood in Philly is.
Yeah.
At, more so than most cities.
Yeah.
You go a few square blocks and it's just so different.
Yep.
Such a different aesthetic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a weird place. But, I was there for 10 years. And
Wow.
yeah, it's also a place that was really cheap for a long time, which was nice. I don't think that I could have afforded to stay in New York because it was so expensive, or,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still relatively very cheap
Yeah.
to live down there.
Yeah.
and especially if you have roommates.
Right. Where did you live in Philly, or you were on the other side of the bridge? You were in New
I
Jersey.
was on the other side of the bridge for a while, and then I lived in South
Oh,
Philly,
nice.
like 24th and
Oh,
Passyunk.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like South Philly too.
Yeah. So, after college, what were you doing down there?
I stayed in Philly and I worked at a Montessori school. Oh, so when I was in art school, like I was going just for general illustration, and then I ended up transferring to Philly and went for art education, so to be an art teacher, to be um, yeah, doing that in schools. And I ended up getting a job at a little Montessori school in the area where the school was, and worked there for, I got like my Montessori certification for little teeny tiny kiddos. Did Was there for a long time, and actually I didn't really make any art when I was first doing school stuff, and then slowly towards the end of my stay in Philly I picked it all back up again. But yeah, so like painting and kind
So,
of
for
stuff.
those who don't know, what is a Montessori school?
um, Montessori is it was created by this woman named Maria Montessori. She was the first doctor and scientist, and not first scientist, but she was a cool lady way back in 1907. I think there was like the first Montessori school. But it's kind of like a philosophy that teaches kids how to be like how to find their voice, and how to take care of themselves and take care of others and take care of the environment. So like I worked with toddlers, so I was helping them like walk and talk and
Gotcha.
use the bathroom and like those like basic need things. But it's the idea is that it kind of sets the tone for all of the rest of your education. So it's a little woo woo at times, but it is cool to be able to help like an 18-month-old like stand up for themselves against another
Yeah,
18-month-old, or or just like
sure.
learn how to use their voice and set boundaries.
So, how is that different from Catholic education
uh
for you?
well, it's very different, I feel like.
How is it not different?
Oh,
Is maybe a better
oh, how's it
question.
not different? I don't. Well, I think that there's only one way Catholic school. It felt like, I mean, and probably all other schools. My experience was just in Catholic school, but like you sit at a desk, you do this for 8 hours, and that's it.
Yeah,
And you get up at this time, you raise your hand. But Montessori is not like that. Like you're just like everybody could be doing their own thing. There's no like clocking it at this time to that time. Like you have to be doing this at this time. Like aside from like lunch and you know napping, if they did at school, like they kind of could
yeah.
do whatever they wanted. And I know that sounds kind of lawless, but it wasn't that way most of the time. The beginning of the year was a nightmare, but
It seems like it took a long time to come around to the fact that, every kid learns differently and at their own pace.
yeah.
You know, um, it's not like a one size fits all thing for everyone.
Yeah.
And for some people, like, this traditional school model just doesn't work. That doesn't mean they're not intelligent or that they can't learn.
Right.
It's just that's not how their brain is structured
Right.
in a way.
Yeah, and I feel like when we were in school, I bet there were so many kids that just got left behind with whatever they were stuck on, or like
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know how I passed math for 4 years, like but I just had to keep going. Like no one would go back to be like, let me explain this to you.
Yep.
It was just like, this is it. Yeah. I don't know. It's I like the Montessori like kind of lets everybody do their own thing at their own speed. I think that that's like actually kind of affected my life in outside of school ways of just like um I don't know, just like giving myself some grace around things that aren't maybe working so easily, or just helping me be more patient with other people, or I don't know. It's 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 a whole thing. Yeah,
Forgiveness.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There you go. Cool. So, working in Philly, is that where you met your husband?
Yes. So I was working at this school and I was doing my like internship. So you had to like work underneath, you had to do all this extra work. And my schedule was kind of insane. I worked all day. I worked from like 7:30 to whenever the school closed at maybe 6. But at the time I had this pit bull puppy who was very needy for exercise. Like he needed at least 2 hours of walks a day.
Hmm.
And I could do some of that, but like I couldn't do all of it. So my neighbor had this dog walker, uh, and she was like, oh, you have to get him, he's going to be great, he's great with these kinds of dogs. And this dog he was a big boy, and so he was a little bit, if he didn't have a lot of exercise, he would just like, you'd never sleep because he would just be wild. I guess
I have that situation now.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of energy.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't think I could ever. Yeah. I don't know if I could ever do a puppy again. Like we have some friends, like we watch a couple friends' dogs and I'm like, they're puppies. And I'm like, you're adorable, but it's time for you to go.
Right.
Anyway, so Michael, my husband, was this magic dog walker guy. And he and I after meeting him, I realized that we had a bunch of similar friends, and we knew a lot of the same people, and we were friends for years. And then shortly before he moved, we started dating, and then we moved here, and that's that.
So what prompted the move to Austin?
I was in Philly for 10 years, and it was, I don't know, it's a cool place, but it's also a place where there's a lot, people are angry, and it's a heavy place at times. And I think I was just like, I don't want to live here anymore. And also because if I had still lived in West Philly, I probably would have stayed, but where I was living was
Too much.
Too much. Yeah. My roommate at the time, she was walking we lived over on Girard and Broad Street.
Okay.
Which is North Philly. I mean, not super far north, but north enough. My roommate got punched in the face at 3:00 in the afternoon on Broad Street, which is the busiest street in Philly. Yeah. And it was how is this happening? It's the middle of the day. So yeah, that was crummy. But anyway, I think I just wanted to move to another city, and my mom told me California was too far, and she didn't want me to move to Texas because it's a lot farther than Philly. She would, drive through, and I, easier to drive to and from. But Austin seemed like a good place. I got a job here. Michael was traveling and was like, Austin's pretty cool, you should check it out. And so we just kind of landed here, and we've been here for 10 years, and we don't live in Austin anymore. We live outside of Austin, but it's a cool city, but it's like everywhere else is kind of changing rapidly into condo town. So
you're not keeping it weird?
I mean, there are elements of it being weird, but it's certainly not, not everlasting like we would all hope.
Yeah, it seems like now that the internet is ubiquitous, every kind of cool little city that had its own thing is everyone knows about it now.
Totally.
So everyone can kind of pick their...
Mm-hmm.
Like how thrift stores are ruined.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know, it's such a bummer, but I mean, it's still it's a different city, and it's not a walkable city, which I miss about the East Coast. Just being able to walk from one side of Philly to another, or walk to different neighborhoods in New York.
Right.
Here, it's not like that. I mean, it's hot, number one, but it's also, it's a driving city, but it's still cool. Yeah.
So, did the move now, as far as your art goes, and well, first of all, your main material you use, is it pronounced gouache?
Gouache. Gouache. Yeah, it's like a watercolor, but it can be more you can layer it, and so it's more opaque, and it kind of, it's really flat, so it can look like a screen print. So it's real, it's not shiny or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like a matte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a matte.
For lack of a better term.
That's it. That's the term.
Okay. So how did the places where you live kind of affect your aesthetic for your art? Was it different in New York?
Yes.
Was it angry?
Well, I think a lot of it in New York, it was I did a lot of collage stuff, and that was its own 90s teen magazine,
right.
Destruction of a thing. But I feel I didn't, and so I don't really think I landed on anything. And then in Philly, I started to do more super quiet things, and I'd sew onto my work, and it was real quiet. I mean, it was fun, but it just felt really, I don't know, I was just sort of tiptoeing into trying to make something, but still kind of nervous and didn't want to fully commit to it. And I actually didn't start using gouache until moving to Texas. And I think that honestly, like this, like it sounds silly, but like the sky, like you see skies so much more we're in Texas, like they're in Central Texas, or actually everywhere in Texas, because it's just,
Yeah.
there are cities and there are lots of giant buildings, but the majority of everything is just sky. And I think that that was really,
It
I don't
almost
know.
feels like the sky is closer there
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in a weird way,
No,
right?
totally. Yeah. It definitely feels like, that was something that I never really appreciated as much back home, or on the East Coast in Philly. Like I didn't really see it as much, and probably because I was so distracted by everything I was distracted by, but also all the buildings.
Sure.
So yeah,
So the stars at night are big and bright.
they are.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and there is still no basement in the Alamo.
No.
No, we
Unfortunately.
just watched that movie the other day.
So you got a job in Austin teaching?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked.
Was it another Montessori school?
Yeah, I did that for, it was one of those things where like in the moment it sounded like it was going to be this like dream situation, and then it turned out it was like kind of like a hectic situation. The school was very different than the school I was at on the East Coast, and it was kind of like it was a situation. I was at the school for 2 years, and it was just like it was a nightmare. It was like children gone wild, just like running around, and it just was
Oh no.
hectic, and like staffing was really hard, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I was there for a couple years, and then I worked for a family, and I worked for some startup app for an education thing for a little while, and um, then I started working at I was at the last school I was at. I was there for 7 years, and um, I just left there in December. So now I'm just doing art full time. But I worked in admissions during the pandemic. I mean, during like the height of the pandemic. And so it was really kind of comical to be like on the phone with people trying to convince them to come to a preschool when like no one knew anything about COVID. And I was like, yeah, sure, it'll be great. Just come. It was like the worst. It was the worst
Yeah,
position.
slap a mask on your
Right.
kid.
Yeah. We want to do that. Like the fights and things I got on, like, it was such a,
Uh,
it was, I'm sure it was the perfect time to be there, because I was like, oh yeah, I didn't want to do this in the first place, and this made it a lot
gotcha.
worse. But
So jumping into art full time, does it feel like kind of jumping without a parachute
uh, a li- yeah,
a little
a
bit?
little bit. Like I feel like the first few months, I mean, I had been working towards it for years,
Sure.
and then I was honestly trying to pay off loans and just didn't know. Like I was like, I think I can make both of these things work, and we moved further out, so I live like 45 minutes outside of Austin, and my school is in Austin. So I was in the car a lot, all the time, and so it was starting to interfere with just making art, and that was kind of becoming more of a focus for me, and it was going well. So but yeah, so since leaving there, I feel like it's been interesting trying to get into a new routine, because I don't have one anymore. It kind of is like, I mean,
Mhm.
every day can feel like the same thing because I have to work as much as I do, but I feel like, and I like to, but it's different, like normally, like my whole life, I was working in a school or in school. And so like back to school time this year, I was like, wait, I don't need to go buy notebooks or like think about, all of this stuff. And so that was fun. But I guess I'm still getting used to it, and trying to do everything I can to keep doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the whole self promotion and a lot of artists, I suspect with you as well, like it's kind of hard to like just force yourself out there into people's faces.
Yeah. I
You just kind of want to do your thing and
right.
have people see it somehow.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that like I like Instagram for that, because like I don't have to like have my face in it, or I can just like be like, here's this thing, here's this thing, here's this thing.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like anytime I'm doing stuff in person, I'm usually like botching it, just because I'm like, I shouldn't be talking to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly. But there are some artists that, they don't mind any of that. And I am sort of jealous, but also tired by
Yeah,
that.
no, the gift of gab is it is a gift for, for certain things.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings us to present day.
Yeah.
Just getting out there as an artist. You did a project for Facebook.
I did. So Facebook offices have, in all their offices in all the cities, they had this program. I don't remember what it was called because I don't think they have it anymore, but they would, pay artists like in the area to do an installation of something. And so they'd give you a certain amount of space and basically were like, and they'd pay you and just be like, here, go do something. And, obviously they'd have to approve it, but they really gave you like free reign to do whatever you wanted, which
It's the
was,
dream.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. I feel like I don't think I could go into any kind of process like that ever again without those same ramifications, because it's just not, it was not the same thing. But I did this thing. It was, I had this like, they had like these main offices, or these like common areas, and then inside there were little offices. And so my stuff is on it's in the main like common area. But I did kind of like a scene from like day to night and traveling across Texas to go to this mini golf place that's in Austin. It's called Peter Pan Mini Golf. It's been there since like, I don't know, like 1945. It's like owned by the same family still. And so I just made this like goofy little like road trip installation like scene of a little car going across to go from, I don't know, all the way in West Texas uh to Peter Pan Mini Golf. And I made little billboards and stuff. So it was like kind of like a countdown of like, you're 10 miles away, you're 3 miles away. And it was fun. It was a fun project.
And you're also doing kind of like a subscription
Oh yeah.
situation.
Yeah. So I paint, and then what happens with the paintings, I'll make prints of them, and I sell some prints in stores around the country. But I also do this thing where it's I called it the Pocket Print of the Month Club, and so I make these like make one painting a month for this like kind of I don't want to say exclusive because that sounds fancy, because I don't think it's fancy, but I make a painting for this project and then have a little note that goes with it, like about it, like whether it's like a pep talk or just sort of like what I was thinking about when I painted it. And so then people subscribe to that and I send them out each month. And it's been this is the fourth year I've done it, and it's been a really fun project, especially during COVID when nobody could go do anything. It was nice to be like, hey, everything sucks, but you're cool, like in my little notes to people. And or just like to try to think of some art things that would like maybe uplift people, or
Yeah.
make them feel not so isolated. But
No,
yeah,
that's huge for sure.
yeah,
Just making a connection with somebody, in a
yeah,
positive way.
right.
And as far as like commissions go, um, do people go in kind of like knowing what your style is? Or is it kind of like, here's, they just came across this artist and they said, oh, I need something for my house. Let me
Right.
talk to her.
Yeah. I think that it's worked both ways. Like I feel like there's a bunch of companies that will show your work in like a slideshow of other artists to get you a project or something like that. So I've done things like that. And then I have other projects where people will just email me and ask like, would you do this? And sometimes I feel like I have to be like, well, I don't really paint that, or, I'm not really a portrait person. Like I don't paint people, like, this is what my stuff looks like. And
Yeah.
so it becomes like a lot of like questions about, you know, is this the right fit, or, is this going to work? And yeah, but I think it's sometimes I don't know who the person is, but it's always nicer when you have like the connection of like whether it's like a business or a person. I mean, obviously I didn't really have a connection with Facebook, but
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of like, in a way what they want and what,
yeah,
more or less. Yeah.
yeah, and how open, yeah, like, and how open the person's going to be to whatever you make. I feel like that's always tricky because some people are like, I want it to look like this and this and this, and it's like,
Sure. Yeah.
okay, well that's kind of boring, but or like you don't get to put any of your own oomph in it, and I feel like that's always important, or at least it's my
Do you ever have like difficult customers who you have to do revisions for, or?
um I have, I'm trying to think of, I'm sure I have. I am such a people pleaser that I feel like I'm like, okay, it's fine. But a lot of the stuff that I do, like I have like, you're allowed 2 revisions. And a lot of the like, you know, like you're allowed 2 revisions, and then after that, like we got to call it a day.
Sure.
So if we're really far off, then, you know, we got to start over earlier. But I think with like client work that I've done, like through art organizations that have found the clients for me, there's always like a liaison that I can bounce ideas off of, so that I don't have to deal necessarily with the crazy people or the difficult people. But yeah, I guess I deal with I have a lot of experience dealing with difficult people from working in admissions at a school. So I feel like that was the superpower I gained from that. Not that I want to ever use that superpower, but I feel like
comes in handy.
Yeah,
good to
totally.
have.
Saying no to parents that want their kids to go to a school is hard.
So what do you have coming up on our horizon?
What is happening? Oh, so later this month, every year I do this show or not every year, I've done it for a few years now. I do this show in Oxford, Mississippi. It's called the One Night Stand, and it's at a little motel. And there's usually like 13 or 15 artists that this woman gets for the show, and they get to take over this little like everyone gets to take over their own motel room, and show their artwork, and like, you know, sell things and just have stuff there. So I'm going to do that. That's October 22nd. And it's super fun. Like Oxford's a really tiny little town, but everybody comes out. It's like, it's a big college football time also. So people are out in their Old Miss outfits and costumes, and I don't know why I'm saying costumes.
They're
you
football
sports
costumes.
Stuff. Obviously I don't play sports. I feel like costumes, right?
Face makeup and all.
Yeah, they're just decked out to the nines.
Right.
So yeah, I do that every year. And actually the woman who does it, who runs it, is somebody that I have crossed paths with over time, because she used to do a lot of touring with bands, like doing their merch and taking photos and stuff. So it's kind of neat to be like, oh wait, were you on that tour? Or were you here for that? And to be like, oh yeah, I was there. A bunch of Long Island bands too, so that was fun to like reconnect with her. Yeah, I'm gonna do that in October. And then in Austin they have this big studio tour where they'll have it's like 2 weekends where they'll have artists like all over the city that are just like at places and have their work and stuff to show. So yeah, those are the big things for the most part. I'm trying to think of, we're just this year's been kind of crazy because I had 2 shows over the summer, and so I feel like I'm trying to like get myself a second wind for the fall, because I feel like the fall is always really busy with art stuff. So
And does that get you sustained work for over the winter and beyond?
yeah, sometimes I feel like this year I think that was the other part of like transitioning from full-time job and art to just art, was that the winter